This is episode 105 of the Magic Detective Podcast. On this episode, you'll hear about the Dunninger radio show. That and more on this episode of the Magic Detective Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Magic Detective Podcast, your podcast home for magic history. I'm your host, Dean Carnegie. I am the Magic Detective, and this is episode 105. Thank you all for the nice feedback over the last episode of the podcast. As you're probably aware, I almost never do interviews, and it just so happens that the two interviews I have done were with the same guy, Judge Gary Brown. And they were vastly different. The first one was on Al Flosso. That was episode 56. And this last one, of course, episode 104. That one was on his book, The Inventive Magician's Handbook, with props. And I tell you, I wish you all could have seen the behind-the-scenes stuff that went on before and after the podcast. We recorded this over Zoom, and we were sharing back and forth various ideas and new effects we'd come up with. And I have to tell you, some of the things that Gary has created, this is future stuff, future tricks. Wow, they are so cool. I'm not at liberty to tell you what they are, but when he does put them out, you are going to absolutely love them. And that's all I can say. Okay, so the Yankee Gathering. The Yankee Gathering is getting closer and closer, November 7th through the 9th, 2024 in Nashua, New Hampshire. It's sponsored and or produced by the New England Magic Collectors Association, and they always put on a fantastic little convention. I have attended myself a couple of times and even spoke at one of them. And this will be my second time speaking, and I'm looking forward to it. To register or to find out more information, please visit their website at nemca.com, which is NEMCA.com. Well, we are in the month of October, or what I consider Magic Month, and I thought I'd share with you something interesting that I found on Amazon Prime. This is all of the various magic-related programming on that app, or whatever you happen to call it. Is it an app? Amazon Prime. You get it over your television. Now, I don't have access to Netflix, unfortunately, but I know that Netflix is the home of Justin Willman's shows, but I don't know the full list of what is available over there. But let me give you what they have over here on Amazon Prime. So for the Houdini fans, we have the 1953 Houdini movie starring Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. Next, we have Houdini, the miniseries with Adrian Brody. Next, we have the movie Death-Defying Acts with Guy Pearce, which in my opinion is almost unwatchable, but you might like it. Next, we have The Magic of Houdini, which is an old 1970s documentary with Walter Gibson, Milbourne Christopher, Sid Radner, and James Randi. Then there is The Magic of Houdini, a British documentary of sorts with comedian Alan Davies. Next is Houdini's Lost Secrets, a documentary which first appeared on the History Channel, I think. Next we have Fairy Tale, A True Story, which is it's a movie that has Houdini as one of the supporting characters, and he's played by Harvey Keitel. Next, we have Would You Believe It, a documentary in which Houdini is just one of the stories featured. Next is Houdini and Doyle, the Fox TV series. It's fictional, but they have the whole series available. And finally, Houdini Unlocking the Mystery, another documentary. Now, for TV series that include magic, we have first Mind Freak by Chris Angel. Next, we have a series called Magic and Beyond that was hosted by Michael York. Next, we have the 2015 series called Street Magic. Next, we have Master Mind Freaks Volume 1 with Chris Angel. Next, the Hip Hop Houdini. Next, Penn and Teller's Magic and Mystery Tour. Next is Lost Magic Decoded with Steve Cohen. This was his History Channel series. Next is When Magic Goes Horribly Wrong, And I've watched a little bit of that, and well, you have to see it for yourself. Next is David Blaine, Decade of Magic, Volume 1. Next, we have something called, it's Something Unusual. It's a TV series from Italy. And finally, Penn and Teller's Bullshit TV series. Next, we have the documentaries on magic. Lost in the Shuffle, which is brand new. This is the documentary featuring Sean Farquhar, and it is excellent, if I can say that. Next is the documentary called The Expert at the Card Table, where they examine who possibly could be the man that wrote The Expert at the Card Table. Next is a documentary called Deceptive Practices about Ricky Jay. It is also excellent. Next, we have An Honest Liar about James Randi, also very, very, very good. Next up, we have a documentary called Dealt about Richard Turner. Next is the Long Tack Sam documentary. Next, we have Magic Camp, which is about Tannen's Magic Camp. Next, we have a wonderful series called Quiet Masters, The History and Relevance of Black Magical Artists. It's wonderful. Next, we have Kalanag, Hitler's Magician. This one appears twice on Amazon Prime. I guess 2 different platforms carry it. One of them says you have to have a subscription to see it. The other one doesn't. Just go with the one that doesn't because they're the same documentary. Next, we have Siegfried and Roy, the original Tiger Kings. Next, we have Magicians, Life in the Impossible. And as I recall, that one is a little hard to watch. Finally, we have movies about magic, and there's an interesting list here, too. Billy Toppet, starring Lance Burton. The Prestige, starring Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. Magic, with Anthony Hopkins, that's from the 1970s. The Escape Artist, also from the 1970s. The Illusionist with Ed Norton. The Illusionist, which was an animated movie. Hugo, which is a fictional movie that features George Méliès, the one-time magician and later movie producer. And then we have the following: The Infernal Cauldron, The Hilarious Posters, The Old Hag, The Impossible Balancing Feat, Whimsical Illusions, Excelsior, The Prince of Magicians, The Impossible Voyage. All of these are short films by George Méliès, and all are available if you have a Max subscription through Amazon Prime. And I think that is everything. Let me just double check here. Oh, nope. Sorry, a couple more. We have The Great Buck Howard, which is loosely based upon the life of Kreskin. And then finishing it up, we have Penn and Teller Get Killed, which was an early Penn and Teller movie, which is quite funny. And a full disclosure, I have not seen every one of these shows or movies. I know that there's probably a few I missed somewhere along the way. Some of these I've listed aren't going to be the greatest. Some of them will be pretty decent. Let me see. There were a couple that I found that I would not point you to because they were so bad. So I spared you a little bit of that. Some of these you have to buy. Some of them are rentable, and some of them are free. So you have to decide just how bad you want to see them. I actually rented the Kalanag documentary, and then I wish I had bought it because it wasn't all that expensive. And it was really, really interesting. I thought it was very, very well done. So there you go. Oh, by the way, I know that's a big list, and it's a big list to listen to on the radio or on the podcast. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this exact list over on my blog, which is themagicdetective.com, and you can access the list over there and print it out and explore Amazon Prime and all they have in regards to magic and magicians. So today's episode is going to be a little different. Earlier in the season, I did a podcast episode on the life of the young Joseph Dunninger. And it covered his life right up until the time where he began featuring mainly mind reading in vaudeville theaters. Well, today I have a little bit of a treat. This is an authentic radio broadcast of one of Dunninger's radio series back from the 1940s. I've edited it slightly. When it aired, it was sponsored by Chemtone, which was a paint company. Dunninger made his first appearances on the radio as far back as the 1920s, but his longest stretch of radio shows was from September of 1943 into 1944. He had a weekly radio show that appeared every Wednesday, and of course he would eventually go on to have his own TV show as well. So, my friends, let me introduce you to that master of mind reading, Dunninger.
Here's the Chemtone Hour with Dunninger, the master mentalist. Chemtone's the miracle wall finish that
paints an average room for only $2.98.
Goes on living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, and playrooms like magic.
Goes right over wallpaper, paint, or wallboard.
Mixes with water, dries in an hour, washes easily.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman who, with his unique skill as his only weapon, invades your mind and reads your thoughts, Dunninger.
Thank you, Glenn Riggs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There's one error in Glenn's description. I cannot invade against opposition. I need your cooperation. You must want me to get into your thoughts before I can. What do you say? Do you want me in there? Well, then, here goes. Concentrate. I receive an impression from some lady or gentleman that is concentrating his or her mind upon the initials J.B. I get the name Captain Jim. Does that make sense to anyone? The gentleman about the fifth row, center of the auditorium, is answered. That is your thought, sir?
That's right.
Would that be Captain Jim Blair?
That's right, sir.
You're asking me mentally where he is at this time.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the answer?
I do, sir.
You simply wrote the question, where is he?
That's
you
right.
want me to tell you the answer?
Yes, sir.
The answer to that question, incidentally, appears only in your mind, is not placed upon paper. Would that be Caroline Ireland?
That's right, sir.
That is correct. I thank you. Caroline Ireland. Another impression which I received comes from someone concentrating his or her mind upon a birthday. A day in the month of July, the 25th day in July. Where does that come from, please? July 25th. Who is thinking of July 25th? The gentleman about the 20th row on the right side of the auditorium. The young man with the mic is going up to him. He has to climb a number of steps to get to him on a long cabled microphone. Is that your thought, sir?
Yes, but not a birthday.
Your own? You were born in 1888?
Not a birthday.
Not a birthday. Were you concentrating upon 1888?
No year
The
concentrating.
gentleman here is doing the thinking. Sixth row, center of the auditorium. You see, I can't pick the individual that does the thinking. Would that be correct, sir? The 6th day of June, or rather the 25th day of June, 1888?
Correct.
Just by form of variation, since I've selected you for this test and had a bit of difficulty locating you, would you take some other number in mind as well? Are you now thinking of a serial number, perchance? Is it your own number? Yes or no?
My own.
Good. I'll see if I can get that as well. Would that be 10539?
Correct.
That is correct. Thank you very much. Say, you're great. There's so much good thinking going on that I really hate the stuff.
But we have our judges to introduce, Dunninger.
I know, so do the honors. Will you, Glenn? Then we'll continue.
Tonight's guests represent journalism, music, and the arts. That sounds like a museum. But our judges are too much alive for that. They are the famous author, Broadway columnist, and playwright, Dorothy Kilgallen. The popular band leader, Shep Field. Our third judge is the great poet of World War II, whose famous poems have appeared in the Saturday Evening Post and Life and thrilled the nation, Joseph Auslander. Miss Kilgallen, you're noted for your insight. Do you have any into Dunninger's methods?
Only hunches.
Want to tell us?
No thanks. I'd rather have more to base them on first.
What say, Dunninger?
Yes?
She'd rather have more to base the hunches on first.
I see. Well, then watch closely. Here we go again. I receive an impression from some lady or gentleman that's concentrating his or her initials upon the name, concentrating upon the initials K-R, rather. Kelly is the first name. Where does that come from, please? Kelly is the first name. The last name begins with an R. Seems to be Kelly Rogers. Does that make sense to anyone? It does. It makes sense to the gentleman about the 40th row, center of the auditorium. Is that your thought, sir? Kelly Rogers?
That's the last two names. There's a first name you haven't gotten yet.
Oh, the first one I haven't gotten yet, I see, but that is part of it.
Yes.
You want the first name as well?
Yes.
Would that be Pat?
That would.
It would. And this number you're thinking about, is that Pat's number?
Yes.
What type of number is that, my son? My dear son?
Well, that's my dog, and that's his license number.
Your dog, and that's his license number. I know this thing will go to the dogs eventually, George. Well, you want the dog's license number. You want Pat's license number. Would that be 7812?
Yes, that's it.
Good, fine. All right, thank you. What lady is concentrating her mind upon a thought? The thought seems to be, what is the name of a phone number I found in my husband's wallet? I don't blame you for not raising your hand to that one, Madam. I wouldn't either if I were you. Don't you trust him? I see. You do. You just wanted to know. Well, we'll pass that up. Who was thinking of the Westchester Association? You, sir, the gentleman about the 50th row, way up to the center of the studio. Is that your thought, sir? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you ask me to give you their phone number?
Right.
Do you know it?
Positively.
Oh, Danny, you're very certain about it. Well, I hope that I know it as well as you do, sir. Would it be White Plains 223?
Exactly correct.
I thank you, sir. I thank you very much. I get an impression of the digits 109, line 14. Where does that come from, please? 149, line or dash 14. That's part of a number. Will you please raise your hand, because I cannot identify it. The rest of the thought seems to be the digits 4901. Whose thought is that, please? Is that yours, young lady? Is that yours?
Yes, it is.
That is your thought. Thank you very much. I now receive the impression of someone thinking of June 15th, 1941. Where does that come from? The young sailor lad on the right side of the auditorium, about the 15th or 16th row. Is that your thought, sir?
Yes, it is.
That is correct. I thank you. And now who is concentrating his or her mind upon the digits 3716? It's an address. Part of an address. 3716, the lady about the 12th row. Is that yours?
That is.
That is correct, madam?
That is.
Is that your own address?
That's my number.
Your own number?
And the street number was also there.
You want me to give you that?
Please.
You'd like that. Perfect. Will you think of it very hard?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll try to do that. Would that be 80th Street?
It is.
It is. Thank you. Who is concentrating his or her mind upon the number of a bill in his or her possession? Piece of money, a bill. I get the initial B. That is the series, B, and the digits. Where does it come from, please? Oh, you have a bill also, madam, in your purse?
Yes.
Good. Well, the lady has a very good mind for this type of work, and she thought she'd put me through a second test. Does anyone in the audience know the number of that bill other than you, madam? Are you the only one that knows it?
I think so.
You're not sure of that?
Well, this lady may hear.
She says she
there's
doesn't.
No one,
well,
there's no one else.
I see. Well, see if I can help you out and see if I can get it accurately. Would that number be 224-158-52, Series A?
It is.
100% accurate.
Accurate.
I think. All the impression which I now receive seems to come from someone concentrating his or her mind upon a name beginning with a C. The name of a place, I get Catozella. Where does that come from? That is the lady about the 70th row. It's quite a task getting up there to the young lady. Is that your thought, young lady?
That's right.
Is that a place in Australia?
I want to know whether Mr. Catazella is in Australia.
Well, I couldn't answer that.
You
I'm
don't
no
know?
fortune teller. I can
Well-
only give you your thought, and that is your thought, is it not?
Right.
Thank you. That is all that I can do for you. An impression which I now receive comes from someone concentrating his or her mind upon a question. Shall I return to New York or return to? Where does that come from, please? And the lady about the center of the auditorium, about 20 rows. Is that your thought, young lady? Is that correct?
That's right.
You made that notation at home, did you, upon your own stationery?
No, right here.
And your own stationery?
That's right.
You simply wrote the question, is that correct?
That's right.
Not the answer. Is your name Wynne, perchance?
Yes.
Winnie? Is that initial S?
That's right.
Good. I can't answer that question because it has something to do with the future. No man can honestly answer that. You appreciate that fact. I can only give you your thought. That is right, is it not? That is
That's
your
right.
thought, is it not?
That's right.
I thank you.
What about those hunches now, Miss Kilgallen?
After that very convincing performance, my principal hunch is that Dunninger reads thoughts.
What about you, Mr. Auslander?
Miss Kilgallen's always been noted as an authentic source of information. I wouldn't want to argue with her.
Well, that's very gallant of you, Mr. Auslander. Are you going to let the lady have the last word, too?
No, I'm not.
Die hard, huh? Well, what's your pleasure, Sheffield?
Well, I'd like a little more proof right now. In fact, I think we all would.
I see. Well, I'll tell you, I'm game, Mr. Fields. But I'd like to make a bargain with you.
I've heard that gag before. You mean if you read my thoughts, I've got to do something for you?
Right. Say, who's doing the thought reading here anyway? You or me?
You, if you try this.
Well, what's it about?
It's about fathers.
Uh-huh.
Miss Kilgallen, Mr. Auslander, and I were discussing Father's Day, which, as you know, is due on Sunday. We decided that if we had a chance, we'd test you on this. What are the 3 qualities we agreed every father should possess?
I see. That is the simple little job you picked out for me. Incidentally, I've not asked you to make any notations of these thoughts, have I?
No, you haven't.
How about you, Miss Kilgallen?
No.
Perfect. Would you then be kind enough to be the first to concentrate your thoughts upon this one qualification that is paramount in your thoughts, Miss Kilgallen? Please, think very hard. You haven't any difficulty in doing that, I'm certain. Would you perchance be thinking of the one simple little and ever-important word of patience?
I would.
That is right. Mr. Fields, how about you, sir? Would you be kind enough to concentrate your thoughts upon some quotation that you think acceptable at the moment to the qualifications that father should exercise?
Yes, I will.
Think very hard, sir. It's an effort, is it, Mr. Fields?
Very much of an effort.
Well, sometimes it is hard to concentrate. But aren't you concentrating likewise upon one lone word? One word, not a sentence. Is that right, sir?
Yes.
Perfect. Is that word, let me see, understanding? Would that be accurate?
That is.
That is likewise correct. Understanding. And now, Mr. Auslander, I'm certain that you have selected an unusual thought for us along this particular field of endeavor. Concentrate, please. Well, naturally, you would think of that, wouldn't you? A sense of humor.
That's right.
That is right. I thank you.
Well, Dunninger did it. Now your turn, Mr. Fields.
Well, what do you want me to do, Dunninger?
Well, I'd like to hear you sing.
Oh, I was afraid of that.
Last week, Dick Powell, noted screen star, suggested a mental miracle in connection with the plot of his new picture, It Happened Tomorrow, directed by Rene Clair. Dunninger will attempt to prove long-distance telepathy. Dunninger will give you tomorrow's headline today. Seated at his desk some distance from here is Herman Thomas, an editor of the New York Daily Mirror. He has not yet completed the headlines for tomorrow morning's late editions, but he is thinking about them. With us is Dorothy Kilgallen. She will call the city desk of the Daily Mirror. The editor will pick up the phone and concentrate on what he will write as the headline. The editor will not speak to Miss Kilgallen. He will only concentrate as Dunninger reads his thoughts, and Dunninger writes the headline in bold white type on a dark slate in full view of the audience. Only then will Miss Kilgallen ask the editor for verification. Anything else, Dunninger?
No, I think you've described that very, very well indeed. Miss Kilgallen has now kindly gotten up from the judge's table, has walked to the center of the studio stage, seated herself upon a chair comfortably, has the telephone to her ear. Have you made the contact, Miss Kilgallen?
Is it Herman Thomas? Yes, he's on.
Perfect. Am I correct in asking you at this point, Miss Kilgallen? You are not familiar with this headline at this time?
No, I'm not even familiar with the man.
I see. Very good. And the other judges, Mr. Fields, Mr. Auslander, neither of you know anything pertaining to this information.
Absolutely not.
Is that correct?
No.
Nothing whatsoever.
Inasmuch as that information is entirely unknown to everyone, with the exception of the gentleman on the other end of that phone, the young man in the office. At the mirror, it would be needless for me to ask you if any written notation has been made. No notation could be made of anything that isn't known. Is that not a fact?
That's true.
Would you now, Miss Kilgallen, be kind enough to ask him to concentrate his thoughts upon the very first line of the headline that he has selected?
All right.
For tomorrow morning's paper.
On the first line
first
of the
line.
headline that you've written.
I have a large slate here in my hands for the benefit of
Hello,
my...
are you concentrating?
Is he
Don't tell me
concentrating?
what it is.
Don't
Just
let him tell you what it is. Simply ask him to think of the first line.
First line, yes.
Or the first word. Now take the next, please, in his mind.
Now think of the next line.
That's correct. Now the next. As Miss Kilgallen is asking him to concentrate his thoughts, I am writing the information as I receive
Now,
it.
wait a minute.
I know.
How
The
many
first
lines
two
are you
letters. Yes,
assuming?
the third. His third word, please.
Are you thinking of your third word? Think of the third word now.
He's thinking of the third word. At this point, you do not know what
Yes,
any of
that'll
these
do.
words
Any
are.
line. It doesn't make any difference.
That's correct. You don't know what any of these words are at this
No.
time, do you, Miss Kilgallen?
Yes, he's thinking of the third word now.
Third. Now the next one, please.
Now think of the fourth.
I'm writing that upon a large blackboard here. Miss Kilgallen cannot see what I am writing, nor can the audience. But I hope to show it to Miss Kilgallen and the audience in a few moments before the verification is made over the phone, which I trust will be 90% accurate. Ask him if he has completed the sentence.
Have you completed the sentence? Yes.
Perfect. I'll show this to the audience, consisting of over 450 persons. Now I turn my slate to the stage for Miss Kilgallen to see. Please do not read my sentence, Miss Kilgallen, but do ask him over the phone to tell you the unwritten headline that he has been concentrating upon at this enormous distance from the studio.
Now will you tell me what the headline is?
What is it, please?
U.S.
Yes?
Fleet.
Yes? The next?
Shells.
Shells. And the last.
Corellies is the
Is
last
that correct?
word. That's
Have I it correct?
100% correct.
100% correct.
Well, there you are. What do you say to that, Miss Kilgallen?
For the first time in my life, I'm speechless. That man is good.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Kilgallen. You, Mr. Auslander?
I think it's wonderful.
And you've had an enjoyable and pleasant time
I've
this
had a
evening, I
very
hope.
enjoyable evening.
Thank you, sir. And how do you feel, Mr. Fields?
I'm stunned, that's all. Dunninger is miraculous.
Dunninger, it's right back to you again.
Thank you, Shep Fields, Dorothy Kilgallen, and Joseph Auslander.
Now, here's Dunninger to say...
George Weist, may I have another moment here? There are one or two little thoughts that have left me somewhat up in the air because I have them in part, and I'm certain it'll be of interest to my audience to see whether I could work them out accurately. There's one person in my audience somewhat disappointed because I did not get the complete impression, concentrating his or her mind upon the digit 64. I get 64 Bell Avenue. Whose thought is that, please? That is the lady about the 55th row on the right side of the auditorium. She's up there with a broad smile spreading over her face. The young man is going up with the mic. Was that your thought, young lady?
Yes, it is.
Is it true that when I concluded my readings, you were more or less disappointed? You turned to the gentleman and said, he didn't get mine. Wasn't that so?
Yes, that's true.
That is true. So I thought I'd try to get yours. Weren't you thinking of this particular address in Lewistown, Pennsylvania?
Yes, indeed I was.
That is correct. And I likewise got an impression of someone. I'm not certain whether they're on the same mental plane as far as the vibration is concerned, but someone is thinking of Captain Swift. Where does that come from, please? Captain Swift. That is the lady of about the 12th row on the left side of the studio. Captain Swift, is that your thought, young lady?
That is correct.
You asked me to tell you where he is at this time.
That's true.
Do you know where?
Yes,
Would that be in Maine?
that is it.
Camden, Maine?
That's correct.
That is correct. And one other thought, please. One other thought. I get the word Thestle. Where does it come from, please? Someone almost fell off a chair there, jumping about halfway down the studio. Is that your thought, sir?
Not exactly. You have
Well,
one
is it
letter
certain
wrong.
type of board?
Yes,
Is that not the name of it?
that's correct.
Oh, it is accurate now.
It's the second letter is not H.
I see. It is not an A. It is an R.
It is an R.
I thank you very much indeed.
Now, this is Glenn Riggs bidding you a pleasant good night for Dunninger and the makers of Chemtone and its 50,000 dealers throughout the country. Try Chemtone. No muss, no fuss, no bother with Chemtone, the miracle wall finish. This is the Blue Network.
And that, my friends, was one of the Dunninger radio programs. A couple interesting things about listening to it. You can tell that to some degree the radio show was scripted. When I say that, it's scripted in regards to the judges. You can tell they're reading off a script, so their comments and things towards Dunninger are all written down in advance. Obviously, the host of the show, Sheffield, his comments and things are also written down. Dunninger, of course, is not going by a script, but it's fascinating. Also, the fact that it's being presented, it's a radio show being presented in front of a live audience, and it sounds like they must have been in a theater doing this particular program, and a very large audience at that, so that was wonderful. As far as the techniques and things that Dunninger used, we'll leave those to the magicians that already know them. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Magic Detective Podcast. Please don't forget to go over to my blog at themagicdetective.com to go get your copy of the list of magic programming that's being featured on Amazon Prime. Like I said, you heard me read the list. It's a pretty extensive list and a lot of great programs there to watch that are about magicians or magicians performing. Until next time, I'm Dean Carnegie. I am the Magic Detective. Please be well and stay safe.